We're live.
We are live. We're live. All right, I'm stopping that
All right.
stream.
Welcome.
All righty. Hello, everybody. If you're there, if you can put in a message, that would be great, just so we know that there's some people here. But my name is Donna Serdula, and with me today is Jeffrey Ullman. We are going to be doing a webinar all about how to look for a job in today's new crazy reality. Um, Jeffrey's going to be showing his tried and tested methodology for finding an IT job, like I said, in this new reality. Jeffrey, go ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Donna. So, first of all, thank you for everyone watching live. Everyone watching the replay, thank you for joining. Don and I both know you have other things to do as well. I think you'll find this time useful. At least that's our hope and intent. So it's a real honor to be live with Donna. A little about me. I've had a long IT career, 30 plus years, 30. Spent about 26 or so years at IBM. Not most recently. Then about 6 years at Oracle, and then most recently 2 years at Red Hat. I've had technical roles and pure sales roles. So, given that experience, is why I think it's relevant to this conversation.
So, we're going to make some upfront statements. So, we're going to make, again, just a few assumptions. So, this methodology that we're going to be talking about is for IT jobs. Now, with that said, I do think it extends far beyond IT, but Jeffrey's knowledge base is IT. And so we want to just be very clear that Jeffrey is coming from that IT point of reference. So IT sales jobs, technical jobs, U.S. commercial individual contributor roles. I also believe that this could absolutely apply to manager, executive, and director roles.
Right.
But again, we're really going to try to keep our scope here rather narrow. We're also going to assume that you've done some self-reflection and that you know the roles that you're targeting. All right, this is going to be really important. This is not one of those spray and pray type of situations. We are assuming you know exactly what that next practical step for you is, what you want to do, and who you are. We're also going to assume that you have a good resume, a strong, accomplishment driven resume with quantifiable results, and an optimized LinkedIn profile that's aligned to your goal and written with your target audience in mind. If you do not know if you have a strong resume, if you are not sure about the value of your LinkedIn profile, you can absolutely give me a call. I'm more than happy to talk to you about those items. So with a substandard resume, with a profile that's not optimized, it doesn't matter what we tell you today. This is not going to work for you. So with that said, Jeff, in your intro, you talked about 30 plus years of experience in the IT industry. Can you elaborate on how this is relevant to our discussion today?
Sure. So, I have had a long career, technical and sales roles. And anyone out there that's contemplating a career in IT, the reality is you will get laid off probably at least once. I've been laid off, full disclosure, and I don't mind saying it. I've been laid off more than once in 30 plus years. And in both of those cases, I use LinkedIn to help me find a job. And I spent so much time on LinkedIn, and I learned the right way and what I learned the wrong way and what I felt was the right way to approach finding a job. And I've actually used LinkedIn to find a job. So, kind of as a give back, I documented it and developed a methodology. And that's in the presentation that we'll talk about in a minute. But the other reason I mention is if you've recently been laid off, I can say I know how you feel. It's not fun. It's not pleasant, but it's something you need to get over. And I talk about that a lot. So I feel your pain. I think I know how it is. And everything I've learned in 30 plus years, which hopefully is something, I've tried to document in the presentation. So I feel your pain, and I think I can help you move forward in your journey. You know, Donna, I think we jumped ahead and forgot to bring up our initial charts. This might be a good point to bring those up because I want people. So two things. Donna mentioned this. Donna and I know we're very interesting, but we're not that interesting. No offense, Donna. Please ask your questions. We want questions. We want to make this interactive. So please connect with me on LinkedIn. If you pull out your camera, you can use the QR code or just the old-fashioned way, look me up on LinkedIn. And I have this presentation listed in my featured section. I want you to access it. I want you to use it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. It's the way I give back.
Absolutely. And speaking of giving back, I have tons of free resources on my website, linkedin-makeover.com. And certainly please follow me on LinkedIn as well for as much as I try to post as often as I can and give as much as I can. And with that said, we also have something coming up together that we're doing, Jeffrey.
Yes. So I forgot to mention, I currently work for a nonprofit, South Florida Tech Hub, more commonly known as Tech Hub. And we have various missions, one of which is tech talent, which there is a shortage at a macro level in the whole industry. And I felt Donna was a great resource to help people to use LinkedIn, to develop a brand, to develop their resume, to develop everything needed to help find a job. I asked her, and she was gracious enough to be our keynote speaker. So anyone in South Florida, or even if you're not in South Florida, you can fly in. It's Wednesday, October 16th. It's going to be at Florida International University in Miami. Here's your chance to get to meet Donna live and in person. And you can prove she's not a bot if you'd like, or maybe she'll be such a good bot, we can't tell. I'll be there as well. Love to meet everyone there personally as well at the event.
So let's get back to this presentation and let's talk a little bit about this, Jeffrey. And that is, what is the least understood thing about looking for a job today?
Right.
What are the least understood items?
Well, having looked for roles, having done this, it's a couple of things. It's really and this is a change in mindset. I've determined effectively it's a sales marketing campaign. You are selling yourself ultimately to recruiters and hiring managers. Even if you're looking for a technical role, yes, it's a technical role, not a sales role. But at the end of the day, you're selling yourself as a product, as a value to the company and the skills you have for the role. So to me, that's kind of a change in mindset. You have to think of it as a sales marketing campaign. If you accept that, then in the real world, I shouldn't say maybe non-job related sales marketing campaigns, the thing that'll happen a lot, if you haven't already experienced this, you get rejected a lot. You will get rejected a lot. And I did a little research, and shockingly enough, although it kind of bears with my experience, there's a very low response rate in general to sales and marketing campaigns. It's about 3 to 5%, which is a lot lower than most people think. So if you translate that to real numbers, if you apply to 100 jobs, 100, and you only get 3 to 5 responses, you're doing great.
You're doing great. And I think this is something that few people recognize.
Right. So I turned it around sometimes. Okay, if 3 to 5% is a success rate, then a 95 to 97% rejection rate is normal. So you are going to get rejected. It's not unusual. It's part of the process. So those are the kind of the things I think most people don't realize.
So really what we're saying, and this is something I want all of you to really internalize, is you need to readjust that mindset. There are many different ways, of looking for your next position, and there's many different platforms. But today we're going to focus in on your job search on the LinkedIn platform. So, what's the very first thing a person should be doing on if they plan on looking for a job on LinkedIn, Jeffrey? What's the first thing a person should be
Yeah,
doing?
great question. So I do think LinkedIn in general is the best platform for IT related jobs, both technical and sales. The first thing is, I think you should pay because it is a for paid um, entity, but pay for a premium profile.
Now, I love that you go into this because that's one of the things people ask me all the time when I'm doing a presentation or I'm on a podcast. That's one of the first things. Should I be paying for LinkedIn? What's, is LinkedIn Premium worth it, or is the freemium good enough? So why? Why should a person pay? Because I do agree with you, but why should a person pay?
Yeah, I go into this in a lot more detail than we can here in my presentation, but a couple of things. So, LinkedIn is a for-profit business. Uh, a lot of the features that would really help you finding a role are only available in the premium profile. One of which is you can actually see who's looked at your profile in the past 90 days. So you can look and see, oh, a hiring manager or recruiter looked at my profile. That's a call to action. And you can mention that when you reach out to them. Oh, thanks for looking to my profile. The other thing that's happened recently, and Donna, you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this, last 6 months. So let me take a little step back. If you're not aware, LinkedIn was acquired by Microsoft about 10 years. So over time, Microsoft has been incorporating their technologies, one of which is AI. So a lot of the AI-based features are only available if you have a premium profile. So here's an example where you can use the AI to work for you. One of the AI features is, and it does a good job, it will try to automatically match jobs with your profile, what you've liked, what other jobs you've looked at. And one of the job alerts, which we're going to talk about, will say, hey, I think these roles are a good fit for you. And I will say it does a pretty good job because the roles that it presented to me were a pretty good fit. And sometimes there are roles that would have never shown up in my job alert that only showed up there. So yes, it's not free, but I think it's worth it. One other tidbit, and I didn't realize this till recently, if you can, so I live in the U.S. And in the U.S., the premium career, which is the first premium profile, is about $40 a month plus tax. Mm-hmm. If you can afford to pay the lump sum and pay the whole year, it reduces it about half to $20 a month. So that might be something else you want to consider as well.
Yeah. And when we talk about what you get for paying, there's definitely the AI suggestions. There's also, you get to see who's viewed your profile, which is a fabulous um, feature. I think the other one that you love as well as I love, and this is one of those things that very few people know about, is the open profile.
Right. Right. Thank you. I forgot to mention that. I knew you were on this for a reason, Donna. So this is a highly unknown feature within LinkedIn. It's not. I don't think it's well documented. I don't think it's well explained, and I don't like the name. It's called Open Profile, but that's what it's called. So it's a premium only feature that allows you to reach out to other premium profile holders and not use what's called an in-mail credit. And we'll talk more about that. You get a certain number of credits on your premium profile. But if you use the open profile in a certain way, you can connect and reach out to, let's say, a hiring manager or a recruiter and not use one of your in-mail credits. Mm-hmm. It's a little confusing. It's not well understood, but it's a very, very powerful feature. And Donna recently posted on LinkedIn in more detail about that as well.
I think the one thing to recognize is if you are a free user of LinkedIn, the only people that can truly message you other than through a connection request are first degree connections. And
Right.
basically this open profile opens it up. It allows anyone to contact you. And you can contact those people who are also open profile, which is a fabulous thing. I
Yeah.
also think it's important for us to mention that even let's say the thought of premium is too much for you. You can choose that first month. They normally give you a free first month. Take
Right.
that first month. They'll then ask you to pony up for the second month, and if you cancel, they will typically give you 1 to 2 more months free, which
Right.
means at least for the beginning of that job search, you could potentially have 3 free months of premium that you could be utilizing.
Right. And quick point. Sorry if this can come across. If you don't feel like you want to pay for the whole year, you can go month to month, like Donna just said. You will get a couple of months free, and you can go month to month and cancel anytime. But you will pay the $40 versus the $20.
So let's keep moving on and let's talk about this dream that people have. And and I think it's a good dream, and I think it's a dream that with a really strong brand and a strong network can happen. But for the vast majority of people out there who don't have that strong network or that strong brand, they want opportunities to fall into their lap. That is something that they want. They want recruiters to be picking up the phone and calling them. Jeff, what do you have to say about that?
So I'm kind of a contrarian in some ways. I never felt that I wanted to depend on someone else finding me a job. Recruiters and hiring managers are critical, but at the end of the day, you have to be your own advocate. You have to take control. And I feel like, and I go into this in detail. You've got to find your own role. You've got to navigate the process. You've got to be your own advocate. Recruiters are important, but you're not their only candidate,
Yeah.
contrary to what you might think or feel. So take control and as best as you can. And there's a lot you can do to improve your odds to finding a role.
And I always think of job search as a pie chart. There's many different wedges, and certainly one wedge is absolutely working with recruiters. Another wedge is just grabbing the reins of that job search and networking, or looking at these posted positions and applying. There's a slew of different wedges to it. We're going to really focus in on what do you need to do to look at these posted positions and find these opportunities. So a strong brand, a strong network, and relationships, they will attract recruiters. And we do want that. But we're going to focus on this, a very tactical job hunt today. So you
Right.
signed up for LinkedIn Premium. Jeff, what's next? Right? Like, this is an issue because there's a lot of people who are they're telling you, oh, you gotta research companies, you gotta network, you need to start applying, you gotta do this, you gotta do. What's the first step? Is the premium. What's step number 2?
Great question. So I think it's important. Next step is to set up your job alerts.
Mhm.
And actually, Donna and I talked about this because I thought this through and said, yes, I think the second step should be job alerts. Well, what's the third and the fourth and the fifth? So I put together a checklist, end, start to end. But the next step should be job alerts. And it's more of a art than a science to using job alerts. But that's what I think you should do once you set up. Okay, so in my presentation, um, I've tried to help you follow through step by step. One point you made, Donna, it can be overwhelming. First of all, you're not in a great state of mind when you get laid off. It can affect you personally. You kind of have to get over that. You got to gather your thoughts, and it can be overwhelming. So that's one of the reasons why I thought this checklist might be helpful. What should
And
you do step for step?
And this checklist is available on your LinkedIn profile, on your featured section. It's the full presentation, and this is slide number 44. So it's something to know that it is available to you to look at. But we're going to let's delve into we so setting up these job alerts. Um, What do we need to know about setting up job alerts?
Yeah, a couple of interesting things. And this may be unique to the IT industry. A lot of times the titles can vary by company. So I actually use LinkedIn as a learning experience. After you start looking at it's sort of like my own AI algorithm. The machine
Mhm.
learning worked in my head. After I started reading a lot of job postings, I saw from different companies. I saw what the general terminology was for job titles.
Mhm.
So you want to, if that's the job you're interested in, you want to use those job titles in your search. I will say it's more of an art than a science because oftentimes there may be roles that you're interested in. It's not the exact job title. So you do have to read the job postings in detail. The other thing that may not be intuitively obvious, so you want to search by job title, but you also want to search by geography. And for me, I live in South Florida, so I use Miami, Fort Lauderdale. This is a real tidbit, but I find it to be true. You want to pick the biggest geographic area you're interested in because that helps the algorithm aggregate the jobs. So I had one for South Florida. I also had one for the US, remote virtual, the whole US. And then I had specific job titles that I kind of learned from using LinkedIn.
So you're constantly you're almost reiterating on these things. It's a constant iteration to find the right job alerts with the right job titles, the right locations. It's not like right out of the gate you're going to be 100%, but you're going to try, you're going to see what's working, and you're going to you're going to edit and delete and create new ones.
Yeah, I'll go out and say you're probably not going to get it right the first time, and that's okay. That's how machine learning works. It goes over and over and reiterates and repeats until it rinses and repeats till it gets it right.
So, so there's going to be a slew of these job alerts. Should we be setting them to weekly, daily, monthly? Like, how often should these things be
Right.
delivered to us?
So monthly is too far out because this can be dynamic. You do want to apply as soon as possible because they are generally time sensitive. I found weekly is a good way to start. And then once you get comfortable looking at them, maybe going to daily. I actually went to daily. You get a lot of job alerts if daily, but you can scan through them pretty quickly. So weekly to start with, not monthly, and then maybe go to daily.
So now for me, I'm thinking you have these job alerts, you're getting all of these great alerts coming to you. We should probably create a spreadsheet to track all of these applications. Is that what you would suggest, Jeffrey?
Well, if I was as organized as you, Donna, I would. But I never did that. But that's a great idea. You do want to try to be organized and approach this in a methodical way. But I never did that.
What's all right, so how many of these postings are actually real?
Right. That is a great question. Unfortunately, a large number of job postings are not valid.
Yeah. Is there a way to determine what's real versus what's fake?
No. And that's part of the issue. You don't really know, but I can give you some kind of thought process.
Okay.
So, since LinkedIn is a for profit business, for companies to post jobs on LinkedIn, they have to pay. It's not free. LinkedIn doesn't do it for free. So, generally speaking, there are a lot more roles on the website of a company's webpage than there is on LinkedIn. So, my thought was, well, I need to post it on LinkedIn. It's probably more real.
Right.
A lot of times, even the LinkedIn postings will oftentimes have either the recruiter or the hiring manager listed. You have to read the job postings. I'm going to say that over and over again. Sometimes it's pictorially represented, sometimes it's in the body of the text. So if it's posted on LinkedIn and the hiring manager posted their LinkedIn profile, my logic was, generally speaking, it's probably more real. I will tell you, having done this for 30 plus years, having talked to a lot of hiring managers, a lot of recruiters,
Mhm.
I think about half of the roles that are posted are not real. in that they already have a internal candidate or external candidate in mind, and they're going through the motions for legal reasons or for internal HR reasons. The problem is you don't know which half are real
Yeah.
and which half are fake. So it's the nature of the beast. That's why you want to be methodical and try to approach this in a logical way.
And why you also want to understand that you're applying for things and you're not hearing back. It's not against you. It could just be the posting wasn't real.
Exactly.
So,
And that's back to the if you're an optimist, that's back to the 3 to 5% success rate of response, or if you're a pessimist, a 95 to 97% rejection rate. By the way, I tend to be more of a pessimist, so I just kind of assumed going in I was going to get rejected 95 to 97% of the time, but it helped me emotional.
yeah.
I didn't get so upset. Oh my God, I got rejected 95 out of 100 times. Well, that's normal. So
Yeah.
for me, that was again back to the changing your mindset.
Mhm.
That is the reality today of looking for a role in the IT space.
So, I really like this idea. So we have these job alerts. We're looking at them. We're narrowing down what feels like a good fit. What's interesting to us. What would then be the next step? So we locate, a posting that looks fabulous. That really looks like something that we want to do. What's the next step?
Yeah, great question as well. So, couple of things. There is kind of a hierarchy I found. Ultimately, your goal, it's from the old Mission Impossible TV days and movies. Your mission, Mr. Phelps, should you decide to accept it, hopefully you get the reference out there, is to have an interview with the hiring manager. That is your ultimate goal. There's usually only one hiring manager for every role. So how do you achieve that goal? Well, oftentimes you'll need to talk to other people. Some companies have what's called talent acquisition, maybe screening. Some companies will have you talk to a recruiter. And then ultimately, hopefully, you can talk to the hiring manager. It kind of goes back. You have a question?
Well, I was going to say this. So we want to make sure that the posting fits us and we officially apply.
Correct.
We officially apply on LinkedIn, but we should also go to their website.
Correct.
Right? We want to cover all of our bases.
Correct.
So the first step is we're going to apply for the job. And then I have another question on there too, which is easy apply.
Yeah. So I got a little ahead of myself. Yes. Before you reach out to anyone, you want to officially apply.
Got to officially apply. And we want to cover those bases. Apply on LinkedIn. Then check the company website. See if the posting is there on the company website. Apply there, right? But as we're applying, sometimes I've noticed there's the easy apply button and sometimes there isn't. Like what is your suggestion when it comes to easy apply?
Right. So let me clarify. Yes, LinkedIn is important, but I'm not suggesting not to look at the company's website either. You need to apply there as well. Oftentimes, both the roles will be listed both places, as I mentioned. Actually, I've seen sometimes it's not listed on the website, only listed on LinkedIn, which kind of goes to my point of being valid. Sometimes the role has this thing, LinkedIn has this thing called easy apply. My opinion is easy apply means it's easy to ignore. Doesn't hurt to go ahead and click on easy apply. But again, I have less faith than you're going to get a response with easy apply than a traditional application. That's just been my experience. Doesn't hurt. Go ahead and do it, but don't be dependent on that.
In fact, we just had someone chime in. Dion is here, and she just said it's important to verify the role is real on the company website and apply directly to the website too. So I think that's Agreed. A really good point.
Agreed. What I was leading up to, and thank you, I got ahead of myself. So,
well, let me ask you one more question before you go there. When we look at that website application, they ask a lot of questions.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes, I mean, you're going to spend a lot of time. So what should we be worried about filling in every field? Like, should we be like, like even the salary expectation? Like, what would you recommend when we're on the website and we're applying? How do we handle that?
So my view, and this is based on, again, a lot of experience. I wouldn't focus a lot of time on the questions that they ask on the website. Quite frankly, I'm not sure anybody ever looks at the website. They have it there just kind of for HR legal reasons. Did you check it off? Are you a veteran? Are you disabled? What's your race? That kind of thing. One of the questions you get, and by the way, in this conversation, I would say 99.9% of every application asks for your LinkedIn profile. So that they are going to look at. So you want to have a good LinkedIn profile because companies will look at that. Back to Donna's point, we're making that assumption. But one of the questions I always found very interesting, and it's always worded this way: what are your salary expectations? Which I'm convinced is a legal term because they're not asking you what you expect to earn as a salary. It's your salary expectations. My view was if you're just applying and you haven't had a conversation with a recruiter or talent acquisition or hiring manager, it's too early in the process to give them that information.
Yeah.
If you're talking to a recruiter, that's a valid discussion, but don't provide that way too early in the process. So a lot of times it's a required field. You can't leave it blank or they won't let you go through the application. So I'd put a 1 or a 0 and went on. And I don't think I've ever had, if I ever got an interview, I don't think anyone ever said, "Hey, Jeffrey, why did you put a 1 in the salary expectations?" Nobody looks at it. Yeah. So all the other weird questions sometimes you get, are you over 18? Which I love that. Do you have a valid driver's license? I've always loved that. Really? A lot of weird stuff. Don't spend a lot of time on it. Get through, officially apply, and then move on.
So once the applications have been filled out, Jeffrey, and you have officially applied, what typically happens at the company level? So like internally, they've received this application. What are those internal mechanisms that are taking place right now?
Right. It's hard to tell because it can vary a lot in companies. Most companies now, given the advent of automation, have what's called an ATS, automated
tracking system.
Thank you, ATS. So oftentimes you need to try to get past the ATS. A lot of since I'll go ahead and give you my opinion on that. For the IT roles in the IT industry, I wouldn't spend a lot of time rewriting your resume. I talk to people, they rewrite their resume for every role. I think that's not a good use of your time. You do need to tweak it. You need to read the job posting in excruciating detail, understand what the keywords as best as you can, the key phrases, those you want to insert in your resume. But I wouldn't spend the time rewriting it. I'd spend the time trying to use my methodology to ultimately get to the hiring manager is a better use of your time.
And I also think when we hear that, oh, you need to rewrite your resume, there's almost this idea that this person is aiming low and wide and applying to so many different types of titles and positions that they do need because their resume is reflecting just, alignment to something very specific, and they aren't being very niche in what they're applying to. So, and we've already stated earlier on, you know who you are, you know what you're targeting. And
Right.
So it shouldn't be this huge, wide difference in skill sets and knowledge base.
Right.
So once we have that, this is really now where your methodology kicks in.
Right.
So you diverge from a lot of people at this point. What would you be doing?
Yeah, and this is kind of what I was alluding to before. You ultimately want to get to the hiring manager, but if you're really lucky, the LinkedIn job posting listed, but that's the exception and not the rule. Sometimes it'll even list the recruiter. So oftentimes you don't know who the recruiter is, you don't know who the hiring manager is. It's kind of like a black hole. You've applied
Yeah.
And does it go in and never come out?
Yeah,
Like,
and I think this is a really good time to say this. You want an interview. That's you don't want the job. That's too that's a little further out, but you
right,
want the interview. So we want to shorten the process to getting the interview, which means we need to find the right person who would be the one to set that up. And
right,
so at this point, if you are lucky, that LinkedIn application, that job posting is going to have the hiring manager's name. In that situation, do a happy dance. if if it doesn't, and truthfully, very often it doesn't, you're going to have to figure that out, and that's where you're going
right,
to have to roll up your sleeves and you have to start doing some research.
right.
So take it away, Jeff.
Yeah. And you asked me this before. What are some of the things that people don't realize? My view, looking for a new job is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of time. You do have to roll up your sleeves. You got to invest a lot of time. So that's kind of a general thought as well. So this is something I've kind of developed over time. You ultimately, Donna's right. You ultimately want an interview with the hiring manager initially. But there's a lot, oftentimes, you have to go through to find the hiring manager and get him or her to agree to an interview. Assuming it's not posted in LinkedIn, which usually it's not. What I did is what you want to try to do is see if you can develop an internal contact that currently works at the company. That contact could be who the actual recruiter is. That contact could be who the actual hiring manager is. Or that contact could be, and I've often done this, someone else that has the same role that you're applying for. Most large companies, there's more than one person. So you want to reach out to potentially people that have the same title, potentially that people that are recruiters. Sometimes the job description won't tell you who the hiring manager is, but it will say this role reports to the VP of ABC. Will you search, which LinkedIn will let you do by job title? Who is the VP of ABC at this company? And that person may come up.
So really, one, visit the company page.
Yep.
All right. So, what is the company that has this job posting? Visit their company page. And there's a couple things I want you to do here when you're on that company page. First, you want to follow that company page, because oftentimes, even with recruiters, they're looking at the short list of who's following. So if I'm going to reach out and I have a list of people who's following this company, that already says they have interest. They know who the company is. They're following. That's a good thing. So make sure you're following that company page.
Agreed.
The other thing is, a lot of these companies are paying for certain LinkedIn premium things. And if you go into the about section of that company page, it will say, are you interested in jobs? And you can click that too.
Good point.
Not every single company has that, but if this one does, hit that toggle, click that toggle, let them know that you're interested. Now what you want to do is click on the people. Right? The people tab on that company page. And you're going to find that as you start to scroll down, there's a search bar. But if you continue to scroll past that search bar, you're going to see all of the employees that are current employees of that company. Now, if it's a smaller company, you might be able to just scroll through and look and see. But more often than not, these are pretty big companies. So you want to go to that search bar and start searching. Search for, the name of that department. Search for talent acquisition. I've also said, and I've said this, this is important. Salespeople are the friendliest people in the world.
Usually.
So if you just keep getting goose eggs, search for sales. See if there's someone in sales that you can talk to. Pick up the phone and call them. They will open up their address book and tell you who is hiring or who you should be talking to.
Right.
So, last ditch effort, do a search for sales.
Right. Well, that kind of leads me to one of the things I did as well. So let's say you go through that process. Let's say you find someone with the same title as you. Chances are you don't know who they are.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine to reach out to them. And if you have the premium, you look to see if you can leverage open profile and not use an in-mail credit. I know I'm getting a little deep there. But typically, most professional level people at these large companies, most of them are premium users. So chances are you can use open profile and just reach out to them. And I did that a lot. I said, hey, we've not met. You don't know who I am. I've applied for this role. I see you have the same title. I've been pretty bold and have said, can you look up who the hiring manager is and give me their name and email? People I've never met, don't know me. You'll be shocked how many people, like you said, and truth be told, most of them were sales. But I've had non-sales people say, sure, here it's John Smith. This is their email. A lot of people say, no, company doesn't list it internally. No, I'm not allowed to do that. Okay, that's fine. But you will get you will be surprised. A lot of people, like you said, they understand that they're going to be looking for jobs at some point as well. And they're happy to do that if they can.
And sometimes there's even a kickback. There is a fee. There's a finder's fee that goes into this. So if they do bring your resume in and you are hired, there are a lot of companies that will reward them for that.
Right.
So
Right.
also keep in mind that you're not only are they helping you, but you're potentially helping them as well. So we have this. The idea here now is to message them and just be really honest and say, hey, I'm I have this position there. I'm applying for it, or I've applied for it. I'd really like to know who the hiring manager is. Once you get the hiring manager, what do you say to them? What's the message in there?
Right. Well, great question. And this kind of moves to the next phase of interviewing.
Yeah.
And I actually have some tips for interviewing in the presentation as well. But it kind of goes back to my sales marketing campaign. These are busy people, and you need to think about this beforehand. You really need to have an elevator pitch committed to memory as to why you think you're a fit for the role.
So let's take a pause. You are going to reach out to the hiring manager. It's great to do it on LinkedIn. You could do it via phone. You could do it via email. I mean, there's different ways in. I think Jeff, you feel strongly that just sticking within the LinkedIn platform is a good idea, but there are other ways.
Absolutely.
And you're saying, hey, I'm a good fit. Here's why. And I'd like an interview. Ask for it. Outright ask for an interview.
Right. I've a lot of people said, Jeffrey, I can't ask people I've never met. They don't know me for an interview. And I go, why not? Like Donna said, if the job is real and they're looking for candidates, what's the issue? People are kind of fearful for this. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? They're going to say no. But assuming they say yes, you need to have, and it's a in-person. Well, typically these days it's a virtual interview. You need to have good answers as to why you're a fit, what value can you bring to the company. But the first thing is you've got to think in your head, I'm selling myself. What is the value prop? What are the benefits? Why would the company want to hire me as a candidate? And I actually used to think that way. What would the recruiter or the hiring manager ask me? And then, okay, that makes sense. And I tried to have an answer to the questions I thought they were going to ask me.
So this is scary. It's scary what we're telling people to do, but it does work. It does work. There's a lot of noise out there in their world, and you want to cut through that noise, and you want to shine. You want to splash around and get noticed, so you can have that interview. And still, even doing this, you're going to be subjected to rejection, and that's okay. Your value as a human being remains in place. Just because they're saying no, it may hurt, but believe me, it has nothing to do with you as a human being, as a person.
Right.
Your
Right.
value stays intact.
Right.
Um,
And I hear that a lot. Until we're all bots, and we may be at some point. By the way, I'm not a bot. I'm required by law to let you know. We're all human beings. We all have feelings. It never feels good to get rejected, but you will be. So you kind of have to take it in stride and deal with it and move on. I get a lot of people, Donna, that are kind of emotionally overwhelmed when they get laid off. And
yeah,
I understand it.
it's scary, and you feel
Yeah.
vulnerable, and it's never a good situation. So do you have any additional items? What is there anything that you're giving to the hiring manager in addition? This is not about the interview, so I don't want us to get too far
Okay.
into interview tips. But is there anything else? So really, purchase. Actually, let's pull this up because I think this is a really good list.
Yeah.
Let's
So
bring that
back
up.
to yeah. So again, it can be confusing. There's a lot to it. I like your phrase, Donna. There's a lot of noise everywhere.
Mhm.
So I tried to cut through the noise and list steps
Yeah.
um, to help you ultimately get an interview.
So get the LinkedIn Premium. Really, absolutely consider it.
Right.
Set up your job alerts, and leverage those job alerts. Apply to the roles via the company website, LinkedIn Easy Apply. Just put yourself into the running. Determine the name, the email of the key contacts. We want the hiring manager first, recruiter second, talent acquisition third.
Right.
You know, use that open profile,
Right.
in-mail, whatever it takes, reach out and ask for the interview. And then start the interview process. And at that point, you're at least now in the running. Before, you're hearing crickets, but now by putting some effort in, finding the right people, messaging them, you are going to start to find that you are in fact interviewing. Jeffrey, if you were to pick one thing that you want people to remember, what would that be?
So I'm going to pick a couple of things.
That's
One
okay.
is one is looking for a job is a full-time job. Going to take a lot of time and effort. Second thing is that the response rate is going to be low. It's just, and you could say the response rate is low or the rejection rate is high, whichever you prefer. It's normal. Don't take it personal. Find the hiring manager. Find out who the hiring manager, ultimately get to that person and work on an interview. I'll offer this that if you get stuck, I'm happy to try to help. That's my give back. I'll put a plug in for Donna as well. She doesn't promote herself enough. A lot of tremendous free content out there. I used it a lot. So leverage the free. It's fine to leverage the free content if you want to go to that chart.
Yeah.
And if you want to, I'd suggest consider, if you go past the free material, look at hiring Donna. Well worth the money. It's an invest. So the other thing I got, Jeffrey, is it worth a premium? I say you're making an investment in yourself.
Yeah.
Same thing about looking at to hiring Donna as well. Also, if you're going to be in South Florida, come meet her. Come meet me. Love to meet you. I'm bringing my book to get signed by Donna. I'm going to. Okay. Oh. Sorry, I should have had the book handy. I'm bringing my book for Donna to sign.
Oh, I love seeing that. Thank you so much. So if anyone has any questions, we are able to see the comments. So absolutely ask away. I do have some questions here that I'd love to. We have 10 minutes, so let's get a few more things. So
Sure.
let's talk a little bit about ageism.
Yeah.
What are you seeing out there?
Well, I wish I could say it wasn't real. Of course, it's against the law, but it is real. Interestingly enough, I've seen it both ways. So you can do the math. If I've been in the IT space for 30 plus years, and I didn't start when I was 1, I'm over 50. So I've experienced ageism of being too old, but I've talked to a lot of people looking for entry level roles, and they get the ageism the other way. You're too young. You don't have the experience. So there are ways to talk around that as well. For the being too old, I used to just try to emphasize, you know, it really shouldn't matter. If I can add value and I can satisfy the requirements of the job, my age shouldn't matter. You have to do this delicately. Usually you get you're overqualified. So I heard this once and I used it. Well, if I'm overqualified, it means I'm qualified.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wish I could say I wrote that, but I didn't. So if I'm qualified for the role, tell me again why you don't think you should consider me. You have to kind of sense they're not going to come out and say, "Oh, you're too old, Jeffrey." That's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
The too young, interestingly enough, in the IT space, this is kind of a random question, but it's interesting. A lot of people are in career transition, that they have a lot of life skills, but recently wanted to, let's say, become a programmer.
Mm-hmm.
So they have entry level skills as a programmer. I'll give you some real world examples. I've talked to a nurse, I've talked to a lawyer, I've talked to an Israeli drill sergeant, not making that up, that wanted to switch careers. And I said, yes, tell them you accept the fact that your hard skills are entry level,
Mm-hmm.
but talk about your life skills. They go,
That's
what
a
do you
great
mean?
idea.
You've been a lawyer. I think you know how to articulate and present yourself. Talk about your legal skills, what you had to go through, just getting through law school.
Mm-hmm.
You're an Israeli drill sergeant. Well, I think you've got to have people skills. You've got to know how to motivate. Talk about your soft skills and focus on that. And a lot of people go, gee whiz, never thought of that. So the ageism can work old and young as well.
Yeah.
Kind of a long answer, but does that help?
I think it does. I think it's also important if you are finding that ageism is coming into play. Sometimes it's not
Yeah,
ageism. Sometimes it's how, what is that perception? What is that brand?
right.
And can you really make sure that your profile and your resume and how you're presenting yourself and how you're talking about yourself is where it needs to be.
Right.
So sometimes there's other things at play as well. I would like to talk a little bit about recruiters and the different types of recruiters, because that's something I think very few people
Right.
realize, that there's not just it's not a one size fits all.
Right. We do have a great question I'd like to get to
Oh,
too.
sure. Which one would you like to get into?
Let me answer your question. So
Mhm.
there are recruiters, there are third-party independent recruiters that don't work for the company that is posting the role.
Mhm.
That's a different model. There are recruiters that work for the company that have posted the role. That's a different model as well in
Mhm.
terms of how they're compensated. The other thing that may not be obvious, there are different levels of recruiters. And I alluded to this a little, a lot of the larger companies, the entry level recruiters are often called talent acquisition. They're actually not called recruiters. Typically, they're junior level, just started, and most times they're used often just for screening. Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a communist? No, they don't ask you that. But basic questions just to validate you're a potential candidate. Then they might pass you on to someone with a recruiter title that is a full recruiter. That will generally spend more time with you. And then if you if you go forward in the process, then you'll talk to a hiring manager. So and you didn't ask me that question. Oftentimes, recruiters don't want you to go to the hiring manager because you're bypassing them. So you might be sent. I'm okay with that because, again, I'm being my own advocate. But you don't want to ask a recruiter who the hiring manager is in your LinkedIn mail. That's a little too aggressive. It's like, well, you're immediately trying to bypass me. I don't like that. I'm going to shut you down. So be sensitive to who you're talking to as well. Does that answer your question?
It does beautifully. Which comment would you like to handle?
So David asked about how do you get past the behavioral interview questions?
Yeah.
David, you don't get past them. You prepare for them and have an answer. And I'm glad you brought that up. More and more, I find companies, as they should, have an emphasis and want to know your soft skills, not your hard skills. So typically, your soft skills are your behavioral skills. How do you handle working with a peer that you've had an issue with? How do you handle talking to a customer that's inappropriate? How do you handle a peer that's done something inappropriate? How do you handle a manager? How do you handle stress? That kind of thing, behavioral things.
Mhm.
So, my suggestion, first of all, it's a great question. My suggestion is, and I'll share with everyone, I interviewed for AWS, Amazon Web Services.
Mhm.
They typically only ask you behavioral questions. The whole interview is behavioral questions because they make an assumption you are, like you said, they assume you've got the hard skills to do 90% of the job. They don't know if you have the soft skills. So in my presentation, there's a great book I bought on Amazon of 100 behavioral questions and answers. I bought the book and I picked about 20 or 30 I thought were the most common, and I committed to memory a story. How
Mm.
do I handle stress? How do I handle a peer that I had to deal with? How do, from a sales perspective, one of the favorite ones is how do you handle a customer that only is motivated by price, wants the cheapest deal? There
Yeah.
is an answer to that.
Yeah. And
So,
one of the things you just sort of alluded to, but I think is really important, it's the story piece. It's not saying, "Oh, well, yeah, I handle stress really well. I'm a champ when it comes to stress." That's not a good answer. A better answer would be, "Well, in a previous role, we were in a very stressful
yeah,
situation in which we were dealing with
yes,
these clients that were very angry
yes,
because, something occurred. And the way I was able to handle this situation is now that is a much far better answer
yes. Thank
because
you.
you're weaving it into a story."
Thank you. That's what I meant. You need to tell stories. You're selling yourself. It's a sales marketing campaign. It shouldn't be a novel.
Mhm.
It's got to be a short story. No, it's got to be 30 seconds to a minute.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Read through the book I suggest. I have a couple of people on LinkedIn put some great documents out how to answer the 70 most common behavioral questions. LinkedIn even has a section how to answer these behavioral questions. I'll put in a plug for LinkedIn. I don't know if this is premium or free, but I have it in my deck. They have the ability where you can record yourself within LinkedIn and watch how you answered the behavioral question, all within LinkedIn. I go, whoa. And a lot of the questions are tell me what's your greatest strength? Tell me what your greatest weakness is. Where do you want to be in 5 years? It's all kind of the standard behavioral questions. So the short answer to your question, David, is you don't get past them. You prepare for them and you have an answer or a story for each one of them.
Love it. So we are almost at the very end. We just have a few more minutes remaining. We do have another question, which is how do you tackle finding job roles that are new and different? And I think it's not that much different than what we already talked about.
Yep.
But going back to the very beginning of what we were saying, which is know what it is that you're aiming for. And most, if you want to be on that upward trajectory of your career, each role should be new and different, certainly practical, but new and
Right.
different. And so, figure out, look at those job descriptions, see what that role, entails, see what it requires, see what that perfect candidate would be like, and then look at your profile, look at your resume, and align what you were doing to what that new role entails. I think that's a really important piece is dotting those I's and crossing those T's for those hiring managers and for those recruiters to say, maybe I wasn't doing this exactly, but I was doing very similar things that align me to that next
Right.
role.
Um, I'll answer. I'll give you a little other thought. So I don't know exactly if the person is asking about maybe newer roles for newer technologies.
Oh, they could have been. I took it as in the other way, but go in
Yeah,
that direction because that might be what they meant too.
yeah. So hard to tell just from the question. I don't know if you want to elaborate if you're on. I kind of took it as, I'll give you an example. This is a real world example. AI. AI is so new. Even though a role may be okay. All right. Well, let me come back to that. So AI is new. Hopefully, we're not all killed by Skynet. That's another reference. Hopefully, somebody's laughing out
Oh, he
there.
just had new rules for anything. There we go.
Um, Still not exactly sure what you mean by that. I'm sorry. But let me give you an example. Let's say it was AI. A lot of the job postings, job titles don't have AI in it. This is back to where job alerts are an art and a science. You're going to have to try different keywords to see what comes back. You're going to have to read the job postings to see if it's a fit of what you're looking for. I don't know if that helps. I'm still not quite sure of the question. New roles for anything. Sorry.
All right. So with that said, we are now at a minute past the top of the hour. So it is time for us to say thank you and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for being here and watching this presentation. We absolutely appreciate it. Please visit Jeffrey's profile, check out his deck. It really is a step-by-step guide. It is completely free. He gives this just so willingly, and it's a beautiful thing. I have my website, linkedin-makeover.com. We're here to help both of us. And perhaps if you're living in the South Florida area, we'll be seeing you at the Tech Hub Tech Showcase. So thank you so much.
One parting thought. Thank you, Donna, for your kind words. I do mean it. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Go through the presentation. Happy to answer any other questions. Leverage Donna's free content. A lot of great stuff. Consider potentially maybe hiring her. Come to Tech Talent Fest.